Cole Whitaker had seen storms, droughts, and even the wildfire that once swallowed half his ranch. But nothing in his life, not even a stampede, charging straight at him, had shaken him the way his 5-year-old son's trembling voice did when he tugged on Cole's shirt and whispered, "Papa, that's my mama," while pointing at the carriage rolling toward the Hollister Ranch chapel that morning. Cole's heart slammed against his ribs because the boy had never even seen a picture of his mother, never heard her voice except in dreams, and yet he stood there, staring at the woman in white, arriving for her wedding to another man, tears streaking down her face like she was walking to her own funeral. Cole's breath locked in his chest as he stared at her. Emma, the woman he had lost. The woman who vanished 5 years ago without a letter, without a goodbye, without a trace, except for the son she didn't know she'd given him. And now here she was, stepping out of that carriage in a bridal gown too heavy for her thin, shaking body, her eyes red, her hands trembling, her lips swollen from crying through the night. The guests whispered, the groom, Grant Hollister, the wealthiest and most feared ranch owner in the whole county, stood at the chapel door with a jaw as stiff as hammered steel, clearly annoyed that his bride looked like she had already broken before stepping in. Cole hadn't planned on attending the Hollister wedding. He came only because Hank, his ranch hand, dragged him there saying it was good to show face in town. Cole didn't believe it. He hated crowds, hated gossip, hated pretending. Everything in his life was fine when he carried a hole in his heart the size of Texas, but he never imagined this would be waiting for him. His son Jack was still pointing, eyes wide, voice shaky. "Papa, she looks just like the lady in my dreams, the one who sings to me." Cole's boots felt welded to the ground as he watched Emma wipe a tear with the back of her hand, her fingers brushing the same spot where he once placed a ring. She had cut her hair shorter, but he'd know that face anywhere, the soft brown eyes that once glowed with laughter, the gentle smile, the tiny freckles scattered across her nose like stars. She looked exhausted, scared, trapped. Cole's fists curled. He felt the old ache he'd buried for years rising, like a ghost, because when she left him in pieces. But seeing her cry, that broke something deep inside him all over again. Before Cole could move, Sheriff Daniels stepped toward him. "Whitaker, I didn't take you for the wedding type," the sheriff said with his usual half-smile. Cole grunted, unable to answer because his mind was spinning. Emma glanced toward the crowd, and then their eyes met. Cole froze. Emma froze. It was like time cracked open. She inhaled sharply, stumbling a step backward, as if the ground had vanished under her feet. The hand holding her bouquet trembled violently. Cole felt the world narrow down to just her breath, her face, her shock, and the unmistakable expression of someone seeing a ghost. "Papa, that is my mama," Jack whispered, his voice more certain now, louder. The sheriff heard him and blinked. Townfolks turned. A few gasped. Everything inside Cole screamed to protect the boy, to take him away before things exploded. But things did explode. Emma's knees buckled, and she clutched the chapel rail. Grant strode toward her, grabbing her arm with an iron grip. "Pull yourself together," he hissed under his breath, but loud enough that those close could hear. Emma flinched. That was all it took for Cole to step forward, fire burning in his chest. No man grabbed a woman like that, not while Cole Whitaker was breathing on the same patch of earth. Grant shot him a cold glare. "Whitaker," he said, "didn't know you were invited. Didn't know you grabbed your fiancée like cattle either." Cole fired back. The crowd murmured. Grant straightened, posture rigid, face arrogant. "Stay out of my affairs." "Then stop manhandling her," Cole said, refusing to back down. Emma stared at him with wide eyes, tears welling again. "Cole," she breathed. Her voice cracked like dry wood snapping. Jack tugged on Cole's pant leg. "Papa, why is she sad? Why is Mama crying?" Emma's eyes flew to the boy, really looking at him for the first time. Her lips parted. Her breath hitched. She seemed to sway again. She looked from Jack to Cole, back to Jack, her chest rising and falling rapidly, her mind clearly trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Your Your son? She whispered, voice barely audible. Cole felt his throat tightening. He didn't answer. The truth hung heavy in the air anyway, impossible to hide. Grant looked between them, confusion turning to suspicion. "What's going on?" he demanded. "Nothing that concerns you," Cole snapped, even as his heart pounded like a war drum. Emma bit her lip hard. Her fingers tightened around her bouquet until the stems bent. She looked like she wanted to run to Jack, to hold him, to say something. But fear flashed in her eyes. Fear and something else. Desperation. She stepped back toward Grant, as if forced by an invisible chain. "Grant, let's just go inside," she said weakly. Grant grabbed her wrist again, not rough, but firm enough. "You're acting strange," he growled. "You best not embarrass me." Cole's rage flared so bright he saw red. Jack hid behind his leg. "Papa!" Cole gently pushed his son behind him, jaw clenched. "Don't touch her again," he warned Grant, voice low and dangerous. "Or what?" Grant stepped forward, puffing his chest. "You want to start a fight on my wedding day?" Cole smiled coldly. "You lay one more finger on her, and I'll be happy to finish it." The sheriff finally intervened, stepping between them. "Boys," he said sternly. "Not here." Grant shoved past the sheriff and dragged Emma toward the chapel. Emma didn't resist, but she turned her head. Her eyes met Cole's, pleading, begging, screaming silently. "Save me." Cole felt it, deep in his bones. Something was terribly wrong. Emma was not marrying Grant Hollister by choice. When the chapel doors closed, the sheriff exhaled. "Cole," he said quietly, "you want to tell me why your son thinks the bride is his mother?" Cole kept staring at the closed doors. His voice was barely a whisper. "Because she is." The sheriff froze. "But Emma left town before Jack was even born." Cole swallowed hard. "She didn't know she was pregnant." The sheriff cursed under his breath. "Does she know now?" "She will," Cole said. "And today isn't going to be Grant Hollister's wedding." The sheriff gave him a long look. "You're walking into a hornet's nest if you interfere." "I don't care," Cole said. "She's crying, and my boy deserves the truth." Jack tugged Cole's hand. "Papa, are we going to save Mama?" Cole looked down at his son, Emma's eyes, Emma's smile, Emma's heartbeat. Living in a small boy who had waited 5 years for a mother he'd never met. Cole knelt and put a hand on Jack's shoulder. "Yes," he said. "We're going to get her back." And when Cole Whitaker pushed open those chapel doors to stop the wedding, he had no idea that the truth waiting inside was darker and more dangerous than anything he'd imagined. Cole didn't remember pushing the chapel door open, but suddenly he was standing inside, breath heavy, every eye turning toward him as Emma stood frozen at the altar beside Grant, her bouquet trembled in her hands, her veil crooked from where she'd wiped tears before walking in. Grant stiffened, glaring as Cole stepped forward, voice steady but shaking with buried pain as he said, "Emma, look me in the eye and tell me you want this." She couldn't. Her lips quivered, gaze falling to the floor, until Jack slipped from behind. Cole ran to her with a cry so pure it cracked the entire room. "Mama!" Emma gasped like she'd been struck. Her bouquet fell, scattering petals across the floor. Knees giving out, she crouched to Jack's height, her trembling fingers grazing his cheek as if touching a miracle. Your name is Jack," she whispered. "Papa said you liked that name," Jack answered softly. Emma broke into sobs, pulling him into her arms. Grant lunged forward, grabbing her arm, voice thick with rage. "Stand up now!" Cole's voice erupted like thunder. "Don't touch her!" Grant sneered. "She belongs to me. She belongs to no one," Cole barked. "She was forced into this." Emma, shaking violently, finally cried out, "He threatened my family. He said if I didn't marry him, they'd lose everything." Gasps echoed. Grant stepped toward her again, but Cole met him halfway, fists clenched. The shove, the punch, the crash into the pews, it all happened too fast for anyone to stop. The sheriff and ranch hands pulled them apart, both men bloodied, breath wild. Emma shielded Jack, tears streaming, voice cracking as she confessed everything. How she'd tried to return to Cole years ago. How Grant kept her isolated with threats and fear. How every night she prayed her child if she'd had one, was safe somewhere. Cole felt his anger melt into heartbreak as he held her trembling hands. Grant tried one last time to claim control, threatening her family's land, until Emma's father stepped forward and announced he'd paid the debt in full the day before. Grant's power shattered instantly. The sheriff ordered him out before he could speak another word. As the chapel doors slammed behind the furious rancher, the room finally breathed again. Emma collapsed into Cole's arms, crying into his chest, whispering, "Cole, can you forgive me?" Cole cupped her face gently. "I forgave you the moment I saw your tears." Jack hugged them both, smiling with the innocence only a child could carry. Together, for the first time in 5 years, they walked out into the sunlight as a family. No lies, no chains, no fear, just the fragile, beautiful hope of a future they were finally free to choose together.